see. We'll start the recording. There we go, and I'm going to share my screen for you guys. So I'm going to present my entire screen. There we go, and we'll share that. Now, you guys should be seeing my screen right now. There we go. So let's start with, we're going to dive straight into the vulnerabilities today, because last time we talked a little bit about what target do you pick, how do you pick that target. Well, today we're going to get a little bit more into the vulnerability side of things. I'm going to rush through this because I also want to show you guys something more practical. So if you have any more questions about this, don't be shy to stop me. It's not a problem at all. So let's get right into SSRF first, because of course I also look for SSRF, but how do you look for it and what actually is an SSRF? I think you guys probably know what SSRFs are, so not going to spend too much time on this. It sometimes happens that there's like a server which you can't reach properly from the outside network, and it might need some server on the inside network to actually reach it. And we might be able to make a server make a request on our behalf. So the server side is we're going to forge a request on the server side. That's basically what this means. Let's say we have a page index.php and we go to a web server which has an API and a database server. You can only access the web server, of course. You want to access that one, so you make a call to a specific API, but that's forbidden because that's only accessible by this specific web server. But there's ways that I can abuse this, of course. I can sometimes try to make my web server do a call for me. So I'm going to excellent. So I'm going to, let's say I'm going to create a profile picture, which in this case is going to make a post to Amazon AWS, because the pictures themselves, they're stored in an S3 bucket. So the body is just going to be the picture data, and I'm going to get a URL back that's going to be fed into the second request. The second request is going to make a post to the profile picture.php page, which is going to include that URL. And when I get my profile picture, it's actually going to resolve that URL to AWS. But if I'm a hacker, I can intervene here and I can say, hey, I'm going to post my own URL to my own collaborator, and if the request gets executed, I might have something like a blind SSRF or a normal SSRF on my hands. So I'm making the server do the request for me. I talked about normal SSRFs, but there are also blind SSRFs, of course. Now, the problem with those is that they're extremely hard to actually exploit if you find them. So what do I do if I'm looking for SSRFs? I'm looking for any URL that actually resolves. Like partial URLs in the body, I'm also looking for. Like if a part of that URL is controllable, I might be able to hijack that part and make it into an SSRF attack. URLs within data files, if I can import some stuff, that's also where I'm going to be looking, of course. And then refer headers can also sometimes contain SSRF defects. So that's where I'll be looking. Where do I start? I usually do an attack on 127, like this one, for example. If I know there's something running internally, like to the web server itself, I'll try to make a request to it internally. If that doesn't work, I try to make an external request to it. So there are many different things that you can try for your SSRF attacks. Maybe I'll have time to show you this attack later, but this is one of my least favorite attacks, because if you have like a blind SSRF, which often happens because you'll enter your burp collaborator URL in there, or webhook.site, that's also an alternative. I'll show you guys that, by the way. So you might know the burp collaborator, but you can also go to webhook.site. And here, once you visit it, you immediately get a URL. This is your unique URL. And it does the same thing as burp collaborator. So it's a really great project. It depends on what you want to use, of course. But blind SSRFs, they are really hard to exploit. You'll have things like you'll have to do things like remote code execution. The thing is, like HTTP requests, they don't show you any results, so you don't even have feedback. You'll have to have a very thorough understanding of the system. But I'm not saying it's impossible, because Nahamsek got a beautiful SSRF, blind SSRF a while ago. I'll look up that specific activity and I'll post it later on as well, because I find it really cool. Now, on to the next presentation. So let's go and open the recent ones more. There we go. Now, the next one I want to do is XXE. Or wait, let's start with CSRF, because this one is also pretty simple. I think you guys all know CSRF, so I'm going to skip the most basic things. But what I really want to go over in SSRF is I actually want to go over. Sorry, can you?
Brother, like in lab environment, we have to, when we try to find SSRF, it is pretty easy. But when we thinking to find in real target, how we can approach to this vulnerability?
So what I do is, whenever I see a URL in an application, it doesn't matter if it's a full URL or a partial URL. That's how I'll try to approach SSRF. If I see that, I'll enter my Bird collaborator URL or this webhook.site URL here. And whenever I enter these URLs in that specific location, if I go to the website that has those URLs, then I might get a hit right here. And those requests, what they're going to do is they're going to allow you to see, okay, now an SSRF attack is being made because you're making the server do a request to a system that it's not supposed to make a request to. So that's how I approach it. Every URL that I see, that's an important one for me. Does that answer your question a little bit?
Okay, thanks. Thanks for it.
Thank you for the question. Really appreciate it. What I really wanted to show you guys for the CSRF attacks is that, let's see, I don't know if this is even the right, I might have the wrong one in here. Let's see. No, this is the correct one. So how can we test for it? No, this is not the correct. This is not the correct presentation. We'll move on to the next one. So let's see real quick. The next one is going to be. Sorry. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them. By the way, don't be shy. Not a problem at all. This one I like to show you guys because SSTIs, they're pretty well researched. But I want to show you guys, okay, if you find an SSTI, because you'll probably know how to try and look for them. In every single input field that you see, you should try to get an SSTI attack factor in there, which is going to be let's see. Do I have it in here? No, I don't even have it in here. So in every single input field, what I'm going to do is I'm going to enter a $, and I'm going to enter 2 of these hooks, and I'm going to enter 7 times 7, and then close this off. Now, if there's a SSTI at stake, if there's a server-side templating engine, it's going to possibly resolve this to several things like 49, or it might get 7 sevens there. It really depends on what templating engine is being used. So what we should do to exploit this, and I know this might be a little bit small, but the moment we find one of these SSTIs, we need to see, okay, what's going on here? What context am I in? Because a server-side templating engine has 2 possible contexts that you can belong in. You can come into the code context or the plain text context. Now, in the plain text context, you can see that there are several templating engines being used. Same for the code context. It might be a little bit hard to see how you can possibly identify that specific templating engine right now, but I'm not going to go too deep into it because you can look SSTI from Portswigger, and they have a pretty good article on SSTIs themselves. So they also tell you how you can identify them, and I really like the article. Now, what I also want to draw your attention to is going to be your client-side templating engines, because I once did this. I entered this and I got 49, and I was like, okay, now I got to identify my templating engine. But it turned out that I was doing a client-side templating injection. It was a duplicate, unfortunately. That's how I knew. But the thing was, you have to abuse them differently, and they might often lead to cross-site scripting attacks. But the problem is there is not a lot of research being done on client-side template injection. There's a little part in hack tricks, which I really like. But that's about it. If you look it up, there's not a lot of research being done into this. You can see there is something about this being written here, but it's not a lot. It's decent, and I really appreciate that it's here. But again, it's not a lot. So there's a lot of room for research that's still to be done there. Anyway, that was it for these things for SSTIs. Now, what I really wanted to get into was IDORs, because IDORs, they're a completely different beast than some people might expect. The thing with IDORs is everybody thinks it's as simple as changing a number, but it's never as simple as changing a number, because if it was, then everywhere you would have IDORs. You would find them everywhere. But we don't do that. We don't find IDORs everywhere. We find IDORs in specific locations. But what I do is I look at my specific methods and tools, like how I look for IDORs. And then I'm going to give you guys a deep dive into what types of IDORs can exist, because first and second order IDORs are something completely different. Now, I know this is a little bit boring for now, but stick with me, because we're also going to do the practical lab later on. Or if you're watching the video on demand, just skip onto that part. So what is a specific IDOR? You know, IDORs, everybody knows them. IDORs is not really a thing, to be honest. Like OWASP made that a popular term, but IDORs is basically just a broken access control issue, because in broken access control we have many different types of broken access control. We have horizontal broken access control and vertical broken access control. Now, what does that mean specifically for us? If we're talking about IDORs, we're talking about a insecure direct object reference, which is like a object. You all know ID equals blah blah blah. That's a direct object reference being done insecurely, so I can access objects that I'm not supposed to be able to access. This can either be horizontal or vertical broken access control, because let's say I can access a specific object like invoices and I can access an invoice by its identifier. I can access the details of an invoice, while I'm not supposed to be able to access the invoices module. Well, that's a horizontal IDOR as well, because you have your direct object reference, you have invoice ID equals blah blah blah. So it can be vertical as well. Sorry, I mixed them up. That was a vertical privilege escalation, of course. Your horizontal privilege escalation can be two employees from the same company. One is seeing their paycheck and he decides to change the number, and then he's seeing the other person's paycheck. That's also possible. So that's it for what IDORs are. I'm not going to go too deep into this. You all know what it is. What I do is I have two ways of testing for IDORs: an automated testing strategy and a manual testing strategy. Now, my automated strategy mostly consists of authorize, but sometimes I also use the auto repeater plugin, though it seems to have broken for some reason in the last releases of Burp Suite, so I can't use it anymore properly. And then Burp Suite match and replace is also an option still. And then for the manual testing, what I usually do is I copy and paste specific URLs. Like I log in with an employee in one browser, and I open another browser to log in as a different employee. Then I can also execute JavaScript in the developer console and replace authentication headers in the burp repeater. Now I will show you guys this because I find this very important, that you know that there are multiple ways to test for IDORs. Let's take a deep dive into it. Let's talk about a web shop, for example. In a web shop, what can you test when it comes to IDORs? It's pretty simple in my opinion. You're going to have to test all of the processes. So that includes buying an item, returning an item, and then looking at the invoices, at the credit notes, and then looking at all of these specific things, like if you subscribe to a service, if you just, for example, look at your address, you can also test for IDORs in a web shop. In a game, you can have IDORs between different users, of course. Newspapers, that's small. For me, the IDORs, you can have things like addresses and all of the things above, but you can also have like subscription confirmations, but you will have to subscribe to that newspaper to actually find out. As for a bank, test everything. Everything is vulnerable to an IDOR. Not much more information I can give you guys there. Just test all you can test. Now, what I usually do is I go for business-to-business applications. I really like business-to-business applications. You have different types of applications. We saw that in the last live lesson. As for business-to-business, you can have the applications that run on the same tenant, and you can have applications that run on a different tenant. So let's say you have I'm going to make this this is going to be very complicated, so try to stick with me here. I'm actually going to do this in a new text edit file or something like that. So let's open a new file up. There we go. So let's say I have one company that I'm able to register on a server, and I'm talking about an invoicing application. So I'm talking about cheesy invoices. Well, that's terrible spelling, but that doesn't matter. So that's the one company I can create on a specific platform. Now, I'm going to test for IDORs. So what I'm going to test for is I'm going to test for also the Gouda invoices. That's a type of cheese, by the way. And I'm going to create these two accounts. I'm going to create employee 1 for the cheesy, and then I'm going to do the same thing with employee 2. And we're going to do the same thing again for the Gouda here. There we go, and the same thing happens with employee number 2. So now I already have a lot of different things that I can test for, because I can test for IDORs between these two, like employee 1 and employee 2 of cheesy 1, and I can also test for IDORs between Gouda invoices and cheesy invoices, so I can test for between them. Now, if I'm talking about IDORs, I am also going to have to create an admin account, admin1, for cheesy, because like I told you guys before, you can also have the vertical IDORs. You can have IDORs that you normally shouldn't have access to any of the objects at all. Sometimes you can have access to an object, but only your object. And if you have an IDOR in there, it will be vertical privilege escalation. If you don't have access to any objects, but it's still possible, well, then you have your horizontal privilege escalation. Now, as for these specific things, that's already a lot of things that I can test for. But now let's say that I can have a mega corporation, something like a McDonald's. So let's make a McDonald's out of this, and we can have a franchise. Let's make cheesy invoices. Let's call them the ones from Florida. And then we also have the same company, but it's not from Florida. This one is from New York. then we're already going to be, this is going to be complex when it comes to IDORs. You guys can already see where this is probably coming from. So it's going to be pretty hard to test all of this stuff. This is a city in Belgium, by the way. And then we're also going to take Kent. So we have many different companies that we can create here. I'm going to do this properly, by the way, so it's not confusing. So that's going to make it very hard to test properly, because then I shouldn't be able to have IDORs between the franchises, not between the mega corporations, not between the employees themselves, not between the employees and the admin functionality. As you guys can see, this becomes complex very, very quickly. So you really have to keep your head with the game. And an IDOR is not just an IDOR. It's going to be get variables you can investigate for identifiers, post variables, cookies. There's so much ways to look for identifiers, headers sometimes. So if you can change those identifiers and see data that you're not supposed to see, you have an IDOR. But what's really important is that you understand what data you're not supposed to see. Now, let's get right into it, shall we? Because I'm getting kind of bored of this theory. What I have here is I'm going to start a new container. I'm going to start it on, let's call this just the test lab. And this is a container with the damn vulnerable web application on it. Then you guys can see also a little bit about what this testing is all about. Let's open it up. There we go. So we should have it running in a second. Now, you can test for IDORs, you can test for cross-site scripting, you can test for whatever you want. I think you guys know the basics of the vulnerabilities. If not, we'll go over the rest in the next episode as well. But what's really important now is, let's see if it's already up. Localhost, no, not yet. There's an error. Oh goodies, that's fun. So let's do this on my own labs then, because I think that's more interesting anyway. I make pretty good labs. No, I'm just kidding, by the way. So let's say I'm testing for SSRF. You guys might be wondering, okay, exactly what am I going to test for SSRF then? Because, okay, there's so much things that I can test for. So what am I going to test for? Let's see, I think I did this. Yeah, there we go. Well, let's say there was some way to add social media links on here. That's an excellent opportunity to test for SSRF. Let's say there was a way to add a profile picture on here. Excellent way to test for SSRF. Usually those kind of things are where I'm going to be looking. If there's a partial URL for this social media profiles, that's also possible to escape with things like a null byte, then enter your own URL in there. There's all these possibilities that you can try. Now, these guys have all been trying for cross-site scripting, which is really good, but what you really have to do is look at all the locations that you can, because as you can see in here, okay, we have this specific fields here. In here we have in the edit that's going to be a title vulnerability for cross-site scripting. Now we can also search for things in here. That's also things that I'm going to be testing for cross-site scripting. Going to be testing this for SQL injection. That's also something very important to me. And as you can see, also going to be testing this for some random things in here. Like I had a bad attack vector in here, but I was testing some SSDI things, but not on this lab, so they're not going to do much here. But as you can see, I'm always trying to do things, testing things on my own labs as well. That's very important. If I don't understand something, first of all, I'm going to build it. That's something that really helps, because you really have to understand these things to build them. And second of all, I'm just going to practice on my own labs, on the Portswigger labs, but be careful. Some of them are just incorrect, just a little warning. Not all of them, by the way. There are some really good ones. So just keep on practicing on everything that you can find, on every free lab that you can find. There's things out there like 24/7 CTF. That's also a pretty good website that you can practice on. And just try to, for every input field that you see, you're going to try for a cross-site scripting attack vector. You're going to do all of these things passively, and you're going to see, okay, this works like this works like that. Now there's also some IDORs that I want to show you guys, which is also possible because I have some IDOR labs in here as well. The IDOR labs are on Cheese MS, of course. So there's also a Cheese MS in here, Cheese MS. There are two accounts in here. So you have a test 1 and a test, I think it was a test 2 and a test 3. Sorry, I'm logged in already. So let's log out, let's log in again. Let's look at this test 2, test 2. No, that's not correct. Test 3, test 3. I'm going to have to reset these because I think somebody changed my passwords. But I'm going to log in as one account in this specific browser here. And then I'm going to start a new incognito session. And I'm going to start up a new account in here. And I'm going to be testing. Now I do this by doing, I open Burp Suite, of course, and I open the authorized application. That's something I always try to do because authorize really helps me in speed. I'll show you guys that later on, because what I also want to show you guys is that what I want to do is if I have a specific object with an identifier, like if I log in back to, let's log in back to the Cheesy Labs Medium. I have objects with specific identifiers in here as well, of course, because if I just log in like this and then go like this, and there we go. So every of these objects, every one of these posts, they have a specific identifier to them as well. Now I can test for IDORs on this as well. I can just open it. I can open it in a new incognito window, and I can see that I can view it, of course. That's something I should be able to do, by the way. So this is why it's important to know exactly what you should be able to do and what not, because I can also try for edit. That might be something that I found somewhere, and then it tries to make me log in. So here's one tip that I'm going to give you guys for the hard labs, because that's still going on. For the hard labs, there are things that you can do that you shouldn't be able to do. So I think edit was one of them. Labs and hard. Excuse me, I'm a dumb rat at the moment. So no, edit is not one of the ones. I think it was the delete one that works without being able to enter without being able to log in. So you can just delete items without logging in. That's not the problem. That's not the intention, of course. So if I go like /del question.php, I think it was question mark ID equals 7822 I saw there, and I should have deleted it right now. So of course that's not the intention, but that's one of the issues that's in here, and that's what I always try to do. Now what I also try to do is I go and look at any JavaScript that's in here, because some of these things might contain some JavaScript, and I try to type them in here, like load invoices, and then I give the identifier that it needs, like this, or I might try anything that's required. And the cool thing about Chrome Developer Consoles is that it will automatically fill anything that's actually available to you. Like if I type A, all of these things are available to me. Now I know which ones are Java ones and which ones are not, because I can see this, of course, right here: window, event, target, object, keywords. But of course the ones that have nothing next to them, I know they're Java because I know Java a little bit, and all of these things I've used them before usually, and I also just go through the entire JavaScript code because that's important to me. If I go through it, then I can actually pick up some things that I might have overlooked when I'm manually walking the application, like new functionality, for example, but sometimes also API keys, secrets, all of that kind of stuff. So that's a little bit about how I test. That's a little bit about the vulnerabilities. I'm going to quickly go over one more type of vulnerability because there are some things that I really enjoy talking about. Let's open it up real quick. Where is it? And here we go. That is XXE. Now, you've probably heard about XXE, and you might be wondering, okay, Uncle Red, so if you're testing your application, you're going through it, what type of endpoints do you actually test for XXE in here? Because that's a good question. Not only do you have to attack XML endpoints, you guys already know what XXE is, by the way, I think, so I'm not going to go too deep into it. Let me know if you have any questions. For the XXE part, anything that's XML, of course, but also anything that is a SOAP request, anything that is a docx request, anything that is an XLSX request, anything that has SVGs in it, because that's also XML. So that's basically all of those things that I'm going to test for XXE, and that's what I'm going to try and find my vulnerabilities on for that. Now, fair warning, I haven't found a lot of XXEs in the wild yet, and the ones that I did find were on vulnerability disclosure programs. But I don't want to discourage you to actually look for them, because it doesn't cost a lot of money. If you see any XML input, that's just going to be like, okay, ding, 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 gotta try this. Now the thing is, most people are moving away from XML, moving into more safe formats like JSON, for example. But JSON has insecure deserialization in it, so ding, 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 there we go again. And that's what I mean, because JSON, it has insecure deserialization in it to a degree, but people haven't realized this yet, and there's a lot of things that are still to be discovered in those types of fields, like insecure deserialization, for example. Now, that's a little bit about that. For XXEs themselves, you know what they are, how they occur, but what can you do with them? There's several different things. You can try to retrieve files, perform SSRF, blind XXE, you can try to do commands in them, that's also a possibility. So it really depends on what you want to actually do with them. When you retrieve a file, it's just like a system call, and you actually put that into an entity, and then you call upon that entity in one of these XML, I don't know exactly what you call them, elements, I think. And you're actually going to test all of these specific XML nodes. That's what I think they're called, nodes. Why is that important? Because a developer needs to sometimes in some products disable specific XXE processing, because XXE processing, believe it or not, it's actually a feature of some of these some of these XML processors. By default, it's on with them, so that's actually a problem. But the developer can turn it off totally, or they can turn it off for specific fields. That's why it's important to always test all of the fields in case the developer forgot to turn it off for one of them, of course. Now, the same goes for SSRF attacks. That's also possible. You can enter your burp collaborator or webhook.site URL into it again. And if you get a callback to a system, you might be able to do some data exfiltration by putting the file into an entity and then evaluating that specific entity with another entity, and then trying that that exfiltration, that eval in here somewhere, all of the nodes again. That's what you're actually going to do. But if you found it, if you've gotten this far, like, you can always look up how to get an actual execution of this stuff. XXE is pretty well documented. That's a pretty good thing. Like I told you before, you have to have a file that's like this, like a specific XXE. You can enter your burp collaborator URL in there. I have several files now, one with my burp collaborator URL, but I also have one that has a command in it, and then one that gets a file. So I try all of them, all three of them separately, and I upload it wherever possible. If XML is accepted, that's good. And then I look for DNS and HTTP callbacks in my burp collaborator. I look for specific returns that I expect to see from one of the uploads that I'm making. Now you can also, of course, this is just the burp collaborator one. As for what attack surface you should try, of course, SVGs, like I said before, you can just save this file as an SVG and then upload it. docx and xlsx, there's this really good article on it. I'll show you guys later. And SOAP requests are also just XML requests. That's important to know. But Hacktricks also has a really good section on XXEs. And in here, it's called XML external entities in OpenCAD's application tracking systems. And they show you exactly how to do it. And then you can create your own attack vector, your own attack file for yourself. So I hope that was useful to you guys. And I wonder, do you have any more questions for me, or is there anything else I can help you with?